Good morning. Y'all keep coming in, find your way to your seats. It is a loud morning. You all are excited for the weekend, huh? All right, I'm excited for the weekend too. It's been a long week. But don't forget, we have something special happening tonight in here at 7 p.m. And we have a unique chapel service for you as well. Recording artist, songwriter, producer, filmmaker, publisher, and award-winning author of the Wingfeather Saga, and memoirs, The God of the Garden and Adorning the Dark, Andrew Peterson is here with us today. He is the founder and president of the Rabbit Room, which fosters Christ-centered community and spiritual formation through music, story, and art. He launched a film and TV production company, Shining Isle Productions, to produce animated films based on his best-selling books. He's known for many songs that we know and that we sing here. Songs like Dancing in the Minefields, Be Kind to Yourself, Is He Worthy? Do you want to thank someone? The Silence of God, Nothing to Say, You'll Find Your Way, and much more. He's been named as one of the foremost singer-songwriters around and has received multiple Best Album of the Year awards and also Dove Award nominations. Taking his hits and fan favorites on the road, he has sold out many different places, and we are blessed to have him here with us today. So I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to get out of the way, and he's going to come up and lead us in worship today. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Lord, today as I come to you, I do pray for the Maxwell family. I pray that you would just comfort them and give them grace and peace that I don't even know how to articulate, Lord. Lord, you know you're a good God. You give us good gifts. You're going to make all things new one day. We long for eternity. We long to be with you. But while we're here on this earth and you've given us purpose, we long to worship you, and we want to do it well. We want to do it in a way that honors you, that loves you, and that loves our neighbor. And so, Lord, help us to do that during this time, during this day, throughout this weekend, and with our lives. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Join me in welcoming Andrew Peterson to the stage.
Well, good morning. Thank you so much. It's great to be back. Everybody keeps joking about the milkshake thing that happened a few years ago. Some of you guys probably weren't here yet, but I mentioned from the stage that I liked milkshakes, and somebody bought me one and brought it to me in the middle of the concert or chapel or something. Please don't do that again. Partly because it scared me to death when I just saw somebody walking down the aisle holding something. I was like, what is it? Oh, it's a milkshake. It's kind of a weird dream. Anyway, 2 days ago, or yesterday, was the first day of spring officially. And thank goodness. Whew. I give you praise, oh great, invisible God. For the moon in the space of a dark night, for the smile on a face in the sunlight. I give you praise, oh great, invisible God. For the sound of the storm on the window, for the morning adorned with a new snow. For the tears on the face of the old man, made clean by the grace of the good Lamb. Invisible God. And oh, I long to see your face, invisible, invisible God. All the works that you have made are clearly seen and plain as day, so mighty and tender. Oh Lord, let me remember I see you everywhere, invisible God. In the seed that descends to the old earth and arises again with a new birth. In the sinner who sinks in the river and emerges again delivered. Invisible God. And oh, I long to see your face, invisible invisible, invisible God. All the works that you have made are clearly seen and plain as day, so mighty and tender. Oh Lord, let me remember all your power eternal, your nature divine. All creation tells the tale that love is real and so alive. I feel you, I hear you, great God unseen, I see you. Invisible God, in the long cold death that the winter brings, in the sweet resurrection, spring. Invisible God. Thanks, y'all. Well, it is great to be here with you this morning. I need to pull up my stuff here. So I've been wrestling with what talk to give to you guys this morning. I had one planned, but then I changed plans at the very last minute. So we'll see how this goes. I am going to share with you guys 3 words that I think are great words. I love words and have always loved words. I remember being in 8th grade. I was the kid in junior high who was like reading constantly, but usually not the books that he was assigned to read. I was usually had my nose in some book about dragons or whatever, and was not paying attention to Hemingway and Steinbeck or anything like that. And now the irony is that I like reading those kinds of books way better, but I need to contact my English teacher and apologize. But anyway, I remember walking into Mrs. Roberts' class in like 8th grade, and she had, we all sat down, and she had written the word edify on the chalkboard, and she started the class by asking us if we had a favorite word. And it had never occurred to me that you could have a favorite word. You know, I was just kind of like, oh, wow, what a weird idea. And she said, my favorite word is edify. Class, say it with me, edify. So try it, say it. Edify. She said, doesn't it sound nice? And it sounds like what it means. And there was just like pleasingness to the word. And so she asked us to think of our favorite words. And so I didn't have an answer at the time. It was probably some goofy joke answer. But as I've gotten older, I do now have a favorite word. My favorite word is confluence. And I don't know why, but anytime I see the word confluence, I like it. I go, I like that word. And it just sounds like what it is, you know, like it's easy to see the etymology of the word because it's con, like with, and fluence is flow. So 2 streams coming together is confluence. And in Nashville, where I live, we live near this greenway that has that runs along Mill Creek, this creek that kind of goes through the county. And there's also Indian Creek, a little smaller creek. And they come together at a bridge at the greenway. And anytime I'm jogging or walking on the greenway and I get to the bridge, I look out over where Indian Creek and Mill Creek come together, and I just, every time, you guys, I say, confluence. I just can't help but say it while I'm looking at the thing. Do you guys, okay, so I'm just curious if you have ever thought about that before. Anybody have any favorite words? Anybody have a favorite word they want to volunteer? Yes, what's you? Okay, cool. That's really cool. It's this really long, super califragilistic-y science word that you just said. Anybody have something that I could actually repeat? Yeah. Ambitious? Ambitious. Yeah, that's a good one. I've never tried this at a college, and now I'm realizing this is maybe a bad idea. There's a lot of smart people here. Anyway, I love words, and I think words obviously are great, but there's 3 words that I love that I want to share with you guys this morning that have been that have been good for resetting my compass, there's a book that I really like called Desiring the Kingdom by this guy James K. Smith, and when I read the book, I actually didn't finish the book because my mind was so blown by the thesis of the book that I was done. I was like, oh, the rest of it's filler. And so don't tell him I said that if you know him. But the book talks about how we as humans are fundamentally desiring creatures. We're not fundamentally rational or fundamentally believing creatures. Like the very core of who we are, we were made to love. We were made to desire and love the right things in the right way. And the fall, of course, knocked our ability to love the right things in the right way out of whack. And sin has broken our compass. And so we need things in our lives to reset the compass. And I think that's one of the reasons it's good to go to church every week, because we need to hear the gospel again and again. And the gospel recalibrates our compass, teaches us again and again how to love the right things in the right way. And so these three words are three words that I've kind of hung on the walls of my imagination to remind myself to reset my compass. And it's kind of like I have a friend who has an imaginary board of directors where he said, I remember mentioning C.S. Lewis to him, and he was like, oh yeah, C.S. Lewis is on my board. And I was kind of like, oh, what do you mean? So he just has this like imaginary list of authors and Christians who he really loves, that he imagines are the ones that he goes and reports to, for his board. So these words are hanging on the walls of the boardroom in my imagination, okay? So if you're writing stuff down, I'm just gonna go through them quickly, but I'm hoping that these words will be maybe good for you. The first word is a word that J.R.R. Tolkien coined. The word is eucatastrophe. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the word eucatastrophe. It's a weird word. Okay, a few of you have. He coined it in this essay called On Fairy Stories, which he wrote, I think, in the 30s. He delivered this series of talks on stories. And it's basically Tolkien's theology of storytelling. If you want to understand how he thought about the way God works through stories, this is a good essay to read. And in it, he coins this word eucatastrophe. So the word eucatastrophe, it's the word catastrophe with the prefix "u" at the beginning, EU catastrophe. And so the EU prefix means good, kind of like euphoria, okay? And so a good catastrophe doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But in Tolkien's mind, it's a certain kind of story. And so if in a story, a catastrophe is when everything's going great, and then all of a sudden it falls apart. Oh, I've had a catastrophe, I spilled my coffee, whatever. Eucatastrophe is in a story when everything is already broken, and it is getting progressively worse, and the darkness is spreading, and things are getting so bad that it's hard to imagine a good ending to the story. The eucatastrophe is what Tolkien calls the sudden, joyous turn. The moment when the author of the story lifts the veil, and all of a sudden, you realize that there was this great good that was always coming, that was always meant to be, but you couldn't see it. So when I was writing the Wingfeather books, I knew about eucatastrophe and had experienced it quite often, but I'll just say that one of my goals in writing the story was to make it so that Janner and Kalmar and Lili and all the good guys in the story would reach a point in the story where they could not foresee a good ending to their own story. It was like I wanted them to reach the end of their rope. And I also wanted, at times in the story, for the reader to wonder, how in the world is this going to end well? This can't end well. There's no good ending to the story. How is the author going to wrap all this up? And then, at the end of the story, to lift the veil and show the characters in the story, no, there was goodness in store. And same thing for the reader, to give the reader an experience of the sudden joyous turn. So just really quickly, for example, to drive the point home, the Lord of the Rings story is a big eucatastrophe. The great thing about it is that, when the ring is just, I'm going to spoil it all for you if you haven't read it or seen it, but it's okay. Frodo does not succeed in his mission. Frodo fails in his mission. He is not able in the end to have the strength to destroy the ring. Gollum inadvertently destroys it. And so the real, I would argue, hero of the Lord of the Rings story is not Frodo, and it's not Sam, and it's not Aragorn. Tolkien demonstrates that the real hero of the Lord of the Rings story is God. It's providence. It's the fact that the author, with a capital A, of the story was orchestrating things to work everything out for the good of the characters. And, there's several times in the story where Gandalf says, no, we have to trust that there is some great good at work here. We have to just keep fighting even though we can't see the good ending to the story. So the Battle of Helm's Deep in the Two Towers, if you're familiar with it, it's just incredibly depressing. Overwhelming darkness. The whole battle happens through the course of the night, and it's raining, and there's a sea of orcs, and they keep coming, and Aragorn and all the guys are fighting, and they're just like, there's no way we can win. We cannot defeat these orcs. And so there's this, big moment where they go, we're just going to keep fighting because it's all we know to do, and trust the Maker to make things right somehow. And so they drive out into the sea of orcs expecting to die. And right then is when they look and they see Gandalf on Shadowfax, the rider on the white horse, who appears at the break of dawn. And the rays of light spill over the hill and stab the orcs in the face, and they're all going, ah! And then the riders of Rohan come spilling over the hill, and they drive into the orcs, and then they win. Like, just talking about that scene makes my body react. Like, I don't know if you know what I mean, but I'll get goosebumps just thinking about that eucatastrophe that happens in that moment. And so finally, Tolkien argued that the eucatastrophe of the story of the cosmos, the eucatastrophe of the story that we are all in, is the incarnation of Jesus. It's the moment when God smuggled himself into the world quietly, beautifully, in a way that was prophesied, but somehow no one saw coming. Almost no one saw coming. And that was the sudden joyous turn of the story of the cosmos, was God becoming flesh and dwelling among us. And then Tolkien said, if you zoom in on the incarnation, the life of Jesus, there is a eucatastrophe in his story too. And that, of course, is what we're celebrating next month, the resurrection. The resurrection of Jesus is the sudden joyous turn of the incarnation, which is the sudden joyous turn of the story of the world. Isn't that wonderful? So the takeaway is that if you find yourself in a eucatastrophe story, and the world feels like it is getting progressively darker, and there is too much brokenness for you to handle, I believe that you can trust the author of the story. I believe that there is a sudden joyous turn coming to you. It may take longer than we think, but that's how stories work. And we have a promise in Revelation that there is indeed going to be a rider on a white horse that arrives and makes all things new. So that's eucatastrophe. It's a good word that I would encourage you to hang on the walls of the boardroom in your mind. So the second word is a German word that is Sehnsucht. Some of you guys may know this word. If you're familiar with C.S. Lewis, he wrote a lot about Sehnsucht. It's spelled Sehnsucht. And I think you're supposed to make a weird noise in your throat when you say it. Sehnsucht. So, but it's a word that means an inconsolable longing. I think it's a kind of a hard word to define in English, but it gets at this idea of a longing that never leaves you, and it's a longing for something that you can't quite name. You can't put your finger on it. It's just this feeling of longing that we carry around in us. I don't know about you, but when I first read about Sehnsucht, I knew exactly what C.S. Lewis was talking about. And he talks about these moments of joy, these moments of kind of stabs of joy that hit us out of nowhere, where we feel a tug towards something that we can't explain. And I think that's true for Christians and non-Christians alike. I think every human being in the world carries in them a tug toward home, a kind of homesickness that they carry around with them everywhere. And of course, the suggestion is that, like C.S. Lewis said, if you find in yourself a desire for something that nothing in this world can satisfy, then the most probable explanation is that you were made for another world, right? Sehnsucht is that tug for a world made new and for Christ himself. And so Lewis talks about how there are certain memories that he has, Like he remembers being a kid and seeing a little diorama that his brother had made, like a little imaginary home in a shoebox or something. And when he was a little boy, he saw it and he felt this stab of yearning. And he was like, it's kind of a silly little thing, but for some reason the memory never left him. I bet you guys have moments like that. If you've ever been watching a movie and you burst into tears and you didn't understand why, or you're driving down the road and you hear a song you've heard 1,000 times, but for some reason today this song broke you open. It's one of the wonderful things about art, is that art can be a doorway into longing. And so for myself, I remember when I was in, I think 9th grade, I had a moped. I lived in North Florida at the time, and so it was just like deeply rural Florida, like country boy Florida, and all my friends had four-wheelers and big trucks, and all I wanted in the world was a skateboard and a moped. And so I ended up getting this little Yamaha scooter, and I would ride it. I know it's hard to believe that I was that awesome, but anyway, I would ride around after school for hours by myself. I loved to be alone, and I still actually love solitude. And I would drive the scooter around these dirt roads in my town and just enjoy being alone in the woods. And one day I saw the sun setting over a field of soybeans in Florida. And it was like, Florida is the flattest state in the country. I don't know if you know that. But it means that I just ached for mountains, or even one hill would have been fine. But it did make me pay more attention to the sky. And the sky in Florida is always up to something. It's always doing something cool and weird. And this particular evening, I parked my scooter on the side of the road and looked at the sun setting over a field of soybeans. And I knew that I was not alone. I don't even know that I was really a Christian at this point. I just had this really profound sense that there was the presence of God was with me, and that the world was too beautiful for him not to exist. And I have carried that memory. I can close my eyes and picture it right now, and it was like 40 years ago. I've carried that memory of longing, this ache to go home with me all these years. And so I guess I would just ask you to reflect on those moments of Sehnsucht in your own life, because they just might be breadcrumbs that are leading you to the heart of Jesus himself. That's partly how C.S. Lewis came to become a Christian, is he paid attention to those stabs of joy and realized that those stabs of joy were actually signposts. They were pointing toward a person. And that person is the only one who will satisfy that longing. There's a prayer in a book called Every Moment Holy. I don't know if you guys know the book Every Moment Holy. It's wonderful. There are 3 volumes of it now, written by my friend Doug McKelvey, who is just one of the great writers, I think. And the books are all these, they're collections of prayers for everyday moments, liturgies for everyday moments. So there's liturgies for making a hurried meal. There's a liturgy for hearing sirens in the distance, to give you a way to pray for whatever trouble's happening. There's liturgies for sunset, and liturgies for the first snow of the season. And but one of the liturgies is, I actually, while he was writing this book, I kept texting him ideas, saying, "Ooh, I could use a prayer for this." And so I was like, "Would you mind writing a prayer that my band and I can pray backstage before we come on stage?" And so he wrote a liturgy before taking the stage, which a lot of people use now. And I've almost got it memorized, the whole thing, because we've said it so many times. But my favorite part of the prayer happens kind of toward the end. It talks about how, let this service to these people be a nourishment. And for those of the audience who have not yet wakened to their deepest hungers, please let this brief service to them be like the opening of a window through which the breezes of a far country might blow, stirring eternal longings to life. And it's a wonderful prayer for when I sit down to work on a story, or when I sit down to write a song, or right before I walked out here. Lord, let this brief service to these people be like the opening of a window. through which the breezes of a far country might blow, stirring eternal longings to life. Those longings can lead people home. So that's sehnsucht. It's a wonderful word. So hang that on the wall. And then the third word that I want to talk to you about is fidelity. And I don't mean the life insurance company. Fidelity is one of those words kind of like edify that sounds like what it means. You know, fidelity means faithfulness, like a strong, steady faithfulness. The part of the reason I love this word is because it's the title of a short story collection by Wendell Berry. I don't know if you guys know Wendell Berry, but he's an American treasure and is a farmer in Kentucky who is also a novelist and a poet and an essayist. And he's been writing about creation care basically for 50, 60 years of his life, trying to get America to slow down and pay attention to the given world, the world that God has given us to tend to and to keep. And he talks a lot about farming and agrarianism and the breakdown of community, and it just rings all my bells. I really love his writing. But one of the constant themes of his work is fidelity, faithfulness. And what he means by that is faithfulness to a place, that Americans aren't super good at paying attention to where they are now. We're always scanning the horizon for where we're supposed to be next, at the cost of not loving well where we are. Does that make sense? And so I think one of the great American lies is that the only way to be happy is to be elsewhere. We're constantly assaulted with suggestions from the media and culture itself that the good life is out there somewhere. And when I read Wendell Berry, it reminds me to pay attention to where God has planted me, pay attention to the family that I have, to the church that I'm a part of. Just maybe there isn't a better church out there. Maybe right now in your life, the church where you are is the one where you should be. Maybe the job where you're working is where you ought to be for a while. I'm not saying you can't ever change or move. I'm glad that I moved out of Florida, to be honest. But the point is, while you're here, pay attention to where you are. Rich Mullins talked a lot about, didn't talk a lot about it, but I remember hearing him say, everybody should learn the names of the trees on the street where they live. There are apps, you guys. It's so easy now to like walk down the road and wonder what that flower is and find the name of it. And I've started memorizing the wildflowers. In Nashville, spring is kind of finally actually here, so the wildflowers are coming in bloom. And there's one called Bird's Eye Speedwell, this really low, tiny little flower that I keep seeing in my woods. And I learned it on the app, and I forgot it the next day, and I had to use the app again, and I forgot it the next day. So I have made myself say again and again, Bird's Eye Speedwell, Bird's Eye Speedwell, so that I would know exactly what it was called, and I could greet it when I walked out in the morning. Learning the names of the trees and the plants on your street is a way of paying attention to where God has planted you. Learn the names of the birds that are in your area that are coming through this time of year. Like, learn their names, pay attention to them. Once again, there are apps for that. And here's a wild one. What if you learned the names of your neighbors? There's not an app for that. We just have to be where we are, pay attention to where God has put us, and learn to love the people that he has put in our paths. That's fidelity, faithfulness to a place. So my wife and I, when we bought the place that we live now, we call it the Warren. I talked about it a little bit last time I was here, but we named our house. I think everybody should name their house. But we named our house the Warren, and we've been there 17 years. 17 years we've lived there, and we've been tempted to move many times. Because life has gotten hard, but we keep kind of snapping out of it and digging in and paying attention to where we are. So that's fidelity. Just in closing, I want to share with you guys a slightly embarrassing story. I realize this is being recorded, and maybe it's even being live streamed, so here we go. I was at a concert, I feel like it was like 8 years ago in Nashville. Paul Simon is one of my favorite songwriters. I think probably the two greatest American songwriters are Bob Dylan and Paul Simon, and they could fight it out. Paul Simon's really small, so Dylan would probably win. But Paul Simon has written a ton of great songs. A lot of you guys are younger, so he may not be on your radar, but chances are you've heard Bridge Over Troubled Water or The Sound of Silence or Graceland or You Can Call Me Al. I mean, just song after song after song for many, many years, for decades. He's been writing these amazing songs. And interestingly, I would just throw out there that he's a very honest songwriter. Like I don't know that he's very content with writing fluff. He really wants to dig in deep. And so if you listen to his records, they progressively move closer and closer to God. Like his last few albums have been very explicitly asking questions about not just God, but who Jesus is. And so he's on this really fascinating journey. So anyway, he announced his farewell tour and it was coming through Nashville. So me and all my songwriter friends were like, well, we got to go see Paul Simon on his last tour. And so there's 30,000 people at the arena in Nashville, and little Paul Simon walks out with his guitar to sing his songs. And it just blew my mind for like 3 hours. I just sat there in the audience just listening to him again and again, just going, wow, I forgot about that one. What an amazing song. And there were 30,000 people singing every word to everyone. And at some point in the middle of the show, I started feeling envy. I was sitting there and I felt this little weed sprout in my stomach, and it kind of grew. And I was just kind of like, I wonder what it would be like to have 30,000 people know every word to every song you've written. I wonder what it would be like to have that raucous of an applause, or to have the money to hire that band or whatever. And so my enjoyment of the concert started getting a little bit tainted by this feeling of, by me asking myself, what would my career have looked like if I had not tried Christian music? What if I had tried writing, mainstream songs? It's silliness. I couldn't have ever been a Paul Simon. I know that completely, but the lie began to creep into my imagination. I started becoming discontent with the career that I had. And so I've had a great career. I've got nothing to complain about. I've been making music for 30 years now, and I'm super thankful. Most of the work that I do is in churches, and I'll go play like small to medium to large churches and to audiences that don't cheer and clap, unfortunately. But no, I'm kidding. But it's been a really good, healthy career. I've got nothing to complain about. But that night, I felt the temptation. I kept thinking, what would it have been like if I had been given the resources that Paul Simon? Then I could have used it for kingdom work, and I could have whatever. And so anyway, that night I went to bed. I think I told Jamie that I was feeling this grossness, pray for me kind of thing. And then the next morning I got up early to take a flight to another city in America to do another church show. And I happened to be reading, I know this is going to be a shocker to you guys, The Lord of the Rings. I was reading it for the 4th time, and I got to, and I happened that morning on the plane to be reading the passage at the end of Return of the King, when Frodo has been attacked by Shelob the spider, and she's wrapped him in his web, and Sam thinks that Frodo is dead. And he's in Mordor. They're in the darkest, deadest place you could imagine. And poor little Samwise thinks, I guess it's up to me. I have to carry the ring now. And so Sam takes the ring. And if you know the story at all, you know that when you take the ring begins to work its temptation on you, right? It begins to whisper things in your mind. So I'm just going to read really quickly what I read literally the morning after the Paul Simon concert. This is what was going on in Sam's head. Wild fantasies arose in his mind, and he saw Samwise the Strong, hero of the age, striding with a flaming sword across the darkened land, and armies flocking to his call as he marched to the overthrow of Barad-dûr. And then all the clouds rolled away, and the white sun shone, and at his command, the vale of Gorgoroth became a garden of flowers and trees and brought forth fruit. He had only to put on the ring and claim it for his own, and all this could be. In that hour of trial, it was the love of his master that helped most to hold him firm. But also deep down in him lived still unconquered his plain hobbit sense. He knew in the core of his heart that he was not large enough to bear such a burden, even if such visions were not merely a cheat to betray him. One small garden of a free gardener was all his need and due. Not a garden swollen to a realm, his own hands to use, not the hands of others to command. So I read that story and I realized that I had succumbed to the temptation of the ring. Because what the ring tells you is that with power, you could then do such great good in the world. But the truth is, you could want to do a good thing, but if it's not your thing to do, it's not a good thing anymore. The Lord has given you work to do. He has given you a garden to tend faithfully over the course of your life. And I'm not super old, I'm 50 now, but I can say that I get glimpses of the richness of a life of a long obedience in the same direction. Learning to be content with the garden that you've been given to sow. Sam, in his imagination, he was wanting to do a good thing. He was thinking, with the power of this ring, I could turn this dead land into a garden. But it wasn't his job to do that. That's the Lord's work. Our job is to tend and keep what he's given us to tend and keep. That's fidelity. That's the third word I want you to hang on the walls of your boardroom. Just to close, I think that what we're called here to do is to make known the deeds of the Lord. Somehow, in the work that you do, make known the deeds of the Lord. And then the rest of it is his business. We have this simple garden to tend, and we entrust the rest of it to the Lord. You can't control a thing about what happens with your work. The only thing we have control over is our own obedience to the work that God has given us to do. So the Psalms talk again and again about declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among the peoples. I'll give thanks to you, Lord, with all my heart. I will tell of your wonderful deeds. I think that's what we do. We tell people of the wonderful deeds of the Lord. We, each of us, is one of the deeds of the Lord. And so we get to celebrate his good work in and among us in that way. So that seems like it's, in closing, one thing that we were put here to do, to bear witness to the manifold wonders of what Jesus has done and is doing. We don't have to be afraid of the darkness. We can tell a story that demonstrates what we all know to be true, that the world is a profoundly broken place. Not only that, we are profoundly broken people. And by owning up to that, we can show the power of the pinprick of light in our hearts and in the heavens. And that's eucatastrophe. The darkness ends up being subverted by the light. It draws attention to the goodness of light. And when we do, our work might wake up a longing in people for the coming kingdom, for Christ himself. Our lives can be signposts to the new creation. So look at the gifts that you've been given and the community that you've been given and the work that you've been given to do, and get busy painting your wildest imagining in this world of the world that's to come. And once you set your hand to the plow, keep tilling the toil of the better, truer story. Even when it gets hard, even when you're tired and you feel like it's not doing any good. Fidelity means we plant the seeds and the harvest is God's business. The eucatastrophe of the coming kingdom will appear in his good time, according to his good pleasure. And in the meantime, we yearn for it with Sehnsucht, an inconsolable longing, doing the work that he's called us to with fidelity. Thank you, guys. You're dismissed.